The group's journey into the depths of the desert had become a blur of exhaustion, heat, and endless dunes. They were beyond any known maps, venturing into the heart of the Tanner Desert, a place where even the most experienced nomads dared not tread. Every grain of sand felt like an enemy now, clinging to their skin, drying their lips, and clouding their eyes. The tension among the group had grown palpable since Amina's theory of a royal bloodline within their ranks. Each of them silently wondered, could it be me? Yet no one voiced their thoughts aloud. Even Luca, who normally thrived on humor, had fallen quiet, the weight of the journey pressing on his shoulders. For Amina, the drive to uncover the truth was more than a scholarly obsession now. It was personal. She had given years of her life to the legend of Wakandaya, sacrificed relationships, and endured endless doubts from her peers. But none of that mattered anymore. They were close. Closer than any had ever been, and she felt the truth pressing against her from just beyond the horizon. Wakandaya was there, waiting. As the group made camp one evening, Fatima, ever the sentinel, sat on a dune and stared out at the distant sands, her face pensive. Amina joined her, sensing the unspoken question lingering in the air. "I have been thinking," Fatima said softly, her voice barely louder than the whisper of the wind. "The desert tests us, yes, but it also reflects what is inside us. You've said the heir to Wakandaya is among us, but what if the heir does not know who they are?" Amina had wondered the same. She had hoped that, once they reached Wakandaya, some truth would emerge, some revelation that would make sense of everything. Fatima continued, "In the old tales, the desert spirits hid knowledge from those unworthy. They guard what should not be found by greedy hands. Perhaps the heir is not only of blood, but of spirit." The two women sat in silence for a moment, gazing at the darkening horizon as the last sliver of sunlight disappeared. Then suddenly, the wind changed. It was subtle at first, a gentle breeze rolling across the dunes, but it quickly grew stronger, whipping the sand into the air. Fatima stood up sharply, her hand instinctively reaching for her knife. Amina could feel the shift too, not just in the wind, but in the air itself. It was as though the desert had come alive, responding to an unseen force. "A storm?" Amina asked, though she knew the answer was more complex. "No," Fatima whispered, her eyes narrowing. "Something else." The others, hearing the wind's fury, quickly gathered around the campfire, watching the storm build with unnatural speed. The desert air, normally dry and stifling, now felt charged with electricity, as if the very sands were crackling with energy. Before they could react, a swirling funnel of sand formed in the distance, moving toward them with terrifying speed. Amina's heart pounded as the storm drew closer, but it wasn't just a storm. There was something inside it. Shadows, barely visible, twisted within the swirling vortex, and a low, resonant hum filled the air. "What is that?" Yuka shouted, pulling a scarf over his face to protect himself from the sand. "Spirits," Fatima said quietly, her eyes wide with awe. "The guardians of Wakandaya." Amina had read about the desert spirits in countless legends, but seeing them now in the flesh, if spirits could have flesh, was something else entirely. The shadows within the storm moved like sentient beings, circling the group, watching them. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the storm stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. The air was thick with tension, and the ground beneath them seemed to tremble with anticipation. The shadows in the sandstorm faded, leaving only a strange, otherworldly calm. In the distance, something shimmered on the horizon. Amina's breath caught in her throat. There, far beyond the dunes, was a structure. No, a city. And this time, it wasn't a mirage. Wakandaya, the lost city, veiled in mystery for centuries, stood before them in the fading light of the desert. Its walls were made of polished stone, glinting faintly in the moonlight. Towers spiraled into the sky, their tops disappearing into the heavens. The city had the grandeur of a forgotten empire, a place both majestic and eerily silent, as though waiting to be awakened. The group stood frozen, staring at the sight before them. It was real. After all their trials, they had found it. "It's beautiful," Marcus whispered, awe breaking through his usual pragmatic demeanor. Amina felt tears prick the corners of her eyes. She had spent so long chasing this dream, and now it was here, tangible within reach. The lost city of Wakandaya, untouched by time, lay waiting for them to enter, but the air around them hummed with a warning. "We're being watched," Fatima said, her voice low and steady. The others nodded. The presence of the spirits was palpable, an unseen audience judging their every move. Amina couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the threshold of something far greater than they had anticipated. Yuka, always the first to break the tension, stepped forward. "Well, no sense standing around like statues. Let's see what this place has to offer." The group cautiously made their way toward the city. As they approached the towering gates, they noticed intricate carvings along the stone, depictions of kings, queens, warriors, and mythical creatures. The craftsmanship was exquisite, unlike anything they had seen before. Fatima ran her fingers across one of the carvings, her eyes narrowing as she read the ancient symbols etched into the stone. These are not just decorative. They tell a story, a prophecy. Amina stepped closer, peering at the symbols. "What does it say?" Fatima hesitated before answering. "It speaks of a bloodline, a line of kings who ruled Wakandaya, and of an heir who would one day return to reclaim the throne." Amina felt a chill run down her spine. This was it, the confirmation she had been searching for. The lost heir of Wakandaya was real, and the city had been waiting for their return. Marcus, ever the cautious one, spoke up. "But who is the heir?" Fatima's eyes flickered toward Amina, but she said nothing. Amina swallowed hard, her mind racing. Could it be her? She had always felt a strange connection to the legend of Wakandaya, as though the city had been calling to her. But she had no royal lineage, no claim to any throne. "Let's go inside," Yuka said, pushing the gate open with a creak. "Maybe the answers are in there." The gate swung open, revealing the vast expanse of the city beyond. Streets lined with towering buildings stretched out before them, leading to a massive palace at the center of the city. The palace gleamed in the moonlight, its domes and spires reaching toward the stars. As they stepped inside, a strange sense of calm washed over them. The air was cool and still, as though the city had been frozen in time, waiting for their arrival. But beneath the calm, Amina could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. "This place, it's like a dream," Marcus muttered, his voice filled with awe. Amina nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. The prophecy, the bloodline, the hair, it all pointed to something greater, something she had yet to fully understand. And as they ventured deeper into the city, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being led toward a final revelation. The group made their way through the winding streets of Wakandaya, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The city, though ancient, was remarkably well preserved. The buildings, made of stone and gold, stood tall and proud, untouched by time or decay. At the heart of the city stood the palace, its doors towering above them like the entrance to another world. Amina hesitated for a moment before pushing the doors open. Inside, the palace was grander than anything she had ever imagined. The walls were adorned with murals depicting scenes of kings and queens, battles fought and won, and the rise and fall of empires. At the far end of the great hall stood the throne, a massive ornate seat made of gold and jewels. It was the throne of Wakandaya, the seat of the lost kings. Amina approached the throne slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of the city's history pressing down on her, the eyes of the spirits watching her every move. She knew, deep down, that this was the moment she had been waiting for. Fatima stood beside her, her eyes scanning the throne. "This is where the heir must sit," she said quietly. "The city will only reveal its full power to the rightful ruler." Amina hesitated. Could it really be her? She had always believed in the legend of Wakandaya, but she had never imagined that she might be a part of it. And yet, everything she had experienced, the strange symbols, the trials of the desert, the prophecy, had led her to this moment. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. As she placed her hands on the armrests of the throne, a strange energy pulsed through her. The air around her shimmered, and the ground beneath her feet seemed to vibrate with power. The throne itself glowed faintly, as though awakening from a long slumber. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the hall, ancient and powerful. "The heir has returned." Amina's heart skipped a beat. The words hung in the air, reverberating through the palace. She could feel the truth of them deep in her bones. "I am the heir," she whispered, the realization dawning on her. "I am the last descendant of the kings of Wakanda." The city, once silent, seemed to come alive around her. The walls hummed with energy, and the spirits that had watched them from the shadows appeared, their forms swirling in the air like smoke. They bowed before her, acknowledging her as the rightful ruler of Wakanda. Amina sat on the throne, the weight of her destiny settling on her shoulders. She had found the lost city, and now she understood the true purpose of her journey. She was not just an archaeologist seeking to uncover the past. She was the key to Wakanda's future. The city had waited for her return, and now, with the rightful heir on the throne, it would rise again. Weeks passed, and the world outside the desert began to buzz with the news of the rediscovery of Wakanda. Scholars, historians, and explorers flocked to the Tanag Desert, eager to see the lost city for themselves. But they found only ruins. The city had vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared, leaving behind nothing but sand and whispers of its existence. Amina, Fatima, Marcus, and Luca had disappeared as well, their fate unknown to the world. But in the heart of the desert, hidden from the eyes of men, Wakanda stood tall and proud, its streets alive with the energy of a kingdom reborn. And on the throne sat Amina, the last queen of Wakanda, her eyes gazing out over the city she had claimed as her own. The legend of Wakanda had come full circle, and a new chapter had begun. The lost city was no longer lost. It had simply returned to those who truly understood its power.